Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Today, me and Harley are going to be answering your questions. Harley, good to see you again, twice in a week. This is becoming a regular occurrence.
I know. What a pleasure it's been twice in a week. I'm very lucky. Yeah, I'm excited to do this one.
We've had a lot of questions through, but first we wanted to talk about the statement that was made today about Manny Monthe. Both of us were talking before we started recording, and it seems a bit of a strange one, Harley, because from both sides, you wouldn't expect someone to be making false accusations about something that is homophobic comments. But on the flip side, it's taken 5 months for this to kind of come to light. So I don't know really what that means regarding the comments made, whether it's something that Forest Green have kind of pondered over and waited to get evidence towards before making a case, or what? I mean, what are your views on it?
It's definitely a delicate area, and I firstly hope it's not true.
Yeah.
It's hard to know how to feel on it because, like you say, it's been 5 months, and these things tend, if they are true, which I'm not saying it isn't, they tend to come out a lot sooner. It seems to be in like a week or two they come out, and it's quite a big deal. The fact it's been 5 months is interesting, and I don't know what that means in terms of truth. It could be that someone heard something and there's not really much evidence to go on. I don't know. I don't know who has made that claim, whether it was on the fans, whether it was on the players, whether it was on the coaching staff. I haven't looked into it fully yet to get a broader picture, but it's definitely, I'm not quite sure what's going on because the time frame just seems a little bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and I mean, we completely agree on this. There's no place for those sorts of comments in football, in life, at all. But it would, I don't know, I'd feel really let down and really kind of disheartened if it came about that one of our players did make comments like that. I mean, I know he wasn't the Walsall player at the time, but he's representing our club, and these stories have come to light. Now, obviously, we don't know whether this is true or not. We are speculating based on the very short statement released by the club today and kind of various outlets. But it's something that when Matt Taylor has spoken about bringing the right characters in, you'd have assumed that this has been brought up and spoken about, surely?
I mean, you'd hope so. I mean, potentially it could well be that they didn't even know about it. I mean, this could be something that Forest Green has sat on for a little while and been kind of investigating in themselves and having a look into it. And it's only now that it's been released into public knowledge, even for our players and everyone involved. They might not have known about it until today.
Yeah, I think. I think we'll kind of end by saying that obviously Monthe has denied it, and I think he's got 2 weeks or he's got a week or something to kind of make his case to the FA or get ready to make his case. So, it's not that we're going to be waiting on this for months and months. I feel that, by the end of October, we'll have an idea of how things are going with it. So, like I said, I really hope that it is a mishearing or that it's just something that in the noise of it has been misheard, because I wouldn't want any of our players coming out with comments that were deemed homophobic or anything like that.
No, absolutely, and I completely agree. I absolutely hope it isn't true, because we do not expect that from any of our players in the game, and like you say, we don't expect that of anyone in life. So hopefully it is just a misunderstanding or a mishearing. It's in the heat of the moment. It's very easy to mishear something or think that you heard something. So we're just going to hope it's that, and it turns out to be nothing, hopefully.
Yeah. So moving on now to the questions part. So we had quite a few questions come in, a few different topics. So we'll get started with Oliver Smith. Can Matty Taylor become a world-class coach, and are we relying on Carl Rushworth to keep clean sheets? I'll take the first part of that, and I'll let you take the clean sheets part. I think Taylor can. I think he's got a way of analysing games and a way of talking, and his demeanour makes me think that he really is quite effective on a training pitch. I think that he's been limited with a few injuries, a squad that we know they missed out on a couple of players for. And it's his first job coaching in men's senior football. So he is going to take time. You know, the top managers didn't just do it like that. So I think he can. World class might be a stretch too far, but I think he can become a very good coach in the EFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to that point, I think that there's no reason why he can't become a world-class coach. I mean, almost any coach has that potential. It's just whether it kind of forms or not. So we can wait and see. He's got all the right pieces to his game and to become a world-class coach. So we'll see on that one. The second part to that question, we haven't kept many clean sheets. So in the sense
I mean,
of
that's quite an understatement.
Yeah, in the sense of is Rushworth helping us keep clean sheets? No. But I believe the question there really is Rushworth keeping us in games? And is he limiting the amount of goals like any good keeper should? And absolutely he is. I mean, every time I've seen him play, which is quite a few times now, he has been unbelievable. And most of our wins and our points we picked up are in large parts thanks to him and his heroics.
Yeah,
he's been brilliant, and we're very lucky to have him.
It's one of those that you sort of. I mean, Walsall, I think it's 15 goals conceded in the league this season.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them I look and go, he should have done better with that.
Yeah.
And if there's that slight kind of like, we might have been able to do better, he's made 3 or 4 great saves before it. And you think, well, he's got to get helped out a bit. I think you're right. I think what Oliver's saying is we are relying on him to keep clean sheets because the defence aren't doing that for us.
Yeah.
But you could be the best goalkeeper in the world if you keep giving away good chances. One of them's going to go in eventually.
Yeah, the goal record in terms of goals conceded does him no justice at all because he's been unbelievable. And there's not been a game, like you say, where he could have done better. He's pulled off a miraculous save in almost every single game I've watched him. So he is really helping us. It's not clean sheets at the moment, but he's limiting the amount of goals and keeping us in games, and the clean sheets will come, and it will be in large part down to him.
Yeah. Before we quickly move on, I do also think that Jack Rose, I think he's a very good keeper, and I think in Rushworth's absence, I'm not concerned because I do think we've got a good quality keeper that's coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he hasn't really been given the run of games to show how good he is. And that's not because he's not good. It's just because of how good Carl Rushworth is. Yeah. And like you say, Carl is on under 21s duty at the moment for England. And that's fantastic for us. But when he's not here, Jack Rose can step in. And like he did against Northampton, did a great job. We won a penalty shootout. Fantastic. So,
and he made a brilliant save in that as well in the match.
Yeah, so as a number 2, we're very lucky to have him as well because he plays that role to perfection.
Yeah. So a couple of questions about the academy. So we've got Gaz Watts, who said a large selection of last year's youth team has departed, a few who were knocking on the first team door. Any indication why, if it was our decision or theirs to leave? And then David Sadler's also asked what's happened at the academy. Has ML got a good relationship with JF or a fallout that has moved on to the recruitment process and results? I think it's interesting that thing of Miguel Lair and Jamie Fullerton and whether there is a sort of style that Fullerton's trying to put in place that maybe a few of the better academy players that have appeared to have departed maybe didn't fit into that, and it's maybe a bit more of a ruthless start. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with the academy, but the fact that they seem to have lost every game this season, the under-18s, is a bit of a concern.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to know, because when you look at what we've done recently in terms of league performances, we've been relegated, we finished mid-table, then we almost got relegated again. It's why would the youngsters want to come here at the moment?
Yeah.
Because we're really struggling. So I can see why some of them have left, because there could be better opportunities out there, and that's just a fact. And with Matt Taylor, he doesn't use the youth as much as maybe some other coaches do, and that's because he wants experience in his team. So maybe there just weren't the opportunities for him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I saw these questions. I'd seen a lot about the academy, and it's something that I've been thinking about for a while, because the under-18s aren't performing. There's something that it was a comment made, and I can't remember which one, but on the Football Daily podcast, for anyone who listens, they were talking about academies, and they were talking about particularly the West Midlands. It was a very short kind of few seconds, and the comment was made that West Brom, Aston Villa, Wolves, although obviously we know that there's a big Portuguese influx in the Wolves Academy, Birmingham City, all of the Midlands clubs, youth players are getting better, and that they are filtering into the first teams of the respective clubs. And it kind of made sense, because where they weren't really pushing the youth and the academies, they now are. And it seems to have gone that we're not getting the players coming through that we used to, but now other clubs are in the Midlands.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger clubs have swatted up to that there's a lot of talent here, and that Walsall were actually doing quite well to pick some of them up.
Yeah, there is actually quite a lot of talent in the Midlands when you look at it, and it is a bit of a gold mine. And I think maybe because of the struggles we've had recently, we've kind of let it slip up a little bit on the focus on youth, just because we've been trying to, stay afloat. We went through COVID, so obviously times were tough in terms of financially. So maybe we weren't recruiting as much, not sending out as many scouts to look at youngsters. Maybe there's that element to it. So maybe there's just a few things where we've just let it slip a little bit, and then the other clubs have picked up that slack, and now West Brom, Villa, Wolves in Birmingham, they're all kind of starting to pick up those gems that we're not looking at anymore because we're focusing on other areas.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's also a bit of a coincidence, because you look at Archer for Villa. I don't really know off the top of my head his sort of timeline, but players like that, it's not just this season or last season that Villa have been working on him. They've been working on him for a few years, and I think those big clubs went through lulls where they weren't getting the players in, and rewind, say 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't really a thing, but now it is, and that's the time it takes to produce these players. And I think maybe we're a very small fish in like the West Midlands pond, as it were.
Yeah.
And the big boys have gone fishing, and we're left with what's sort of there. That is a horrendous analogy, but definitely not using that as a sound bite to advertise this.
I think that works. We are. It's a bit of a weird analogy, but I think it does actually work. To be fair, we are a small fish in this pond, and I think we've been punching above our weight. We've been eating some of the bigger fish, and now the big fish signed to eat us.
Yeah.
So it's one of those. But we've got to step up our game. Maybe it's been that we've kind of looked at the success we've been having and gone, good enough. They've looked at the success they've been having and gone, this isn't good enough.
Yeah.
So whereas we've just stayed where we are, they've upped their game because they've got the money to. And they, like you say, the big boys have come to fish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the academy side will pay off with Fullerton a couple of years down the line. I think we've just got to trust that. In terms of the players that have left, I think the only one really that springs to mind is Jaden Campbell.
Yeah.
And it just seems to have, he seems to just have disappeared.
Yeah, it seems like he's just dropped off the face of the earth. And it's hard to know why. Maybe it was that it was an attitude problem. Sometimes there is with these youngsters. Maybe it was that he just wasn't getting what he wanted. Maybe
Yeah.
the coaches didn't think he was ready for first team football and he thought he was. God
Yeah.
knows.
And I
Because
think the going from Clark to Dutton and the real kind of turbulence behind the scenes, some players will just go because they'll
yeah.
have had enough, regardless of who's come in.
And I wouldn't be surprised to say that, or surprised to hear, sorry, that they probably would have had offers because a lot of these youngsters,
Yeah.
even though they're in our academy, someone like Villa may well make him an offer just to see what he says. Because if they
Yeah.
can poach him, they will. I mean, it happens all the time in the sport. So you look at the instability we've got at the moment. What about this club is an exciting prospect in
Yeah.
comparison to Aston Villa, in comparison to West Brom, teams that are playing at a higher level and the structure seems to be better. So
Yeah.
maybe it's that when we've got a better foundation and we're proving that we can bring through youth and we're achieving success, that's going to bring those youngsters back. But at the moment, we're not drawing them in because we haven't got an appeal.
Yeah. So, looking at our next question, Lee Reynolds, when are we going to rectify the situation that each summer we see up to 8 players leaving and they need to sign virtually a new team? We handicap ourselves with new team and they need to gel. The season is over, and we're back to square one. Long-term squad investment, the way to go. I have a couple of thoughts about this. I'm not too sure whether we can entirely kind of blame squad turnover at the moment because, or criticize it, because when we got relegated, I think it was probably 99% of the fan base would have got rid of the amount that we did. Yeah. And last season, I think the same. Cam Norman and James Clark, personally, I would have kept. But we needed a big turnaround. I think the problem is these couple of big turnarounds have happened where we've done it in previous seasons every year.
Yeah. So
it seems to be a recurring theme, but I don't necessarily think that the club can be criticised for that the last twice it's happened. What do you think, Harley?
I think, like you say, it's not necessarily a recurring theme, is it? As much as we got relegated to League Two, we couldn't afford certain players' wages. We had to build a new squad because this was a squad that had been relegated. So that was always going to happen. So that was number one of the turnover. Then that was Darryl Clark building his squad. His second season, there wasn't massive turnover. When you really look at it, he just got rid of the players that didn't work in his system and brought in some good ones. But there wasn't a huge amount of turnover. Yeah. It wasn't a new squad. And then you look at it again, turnover number 2 was last season when we almost got relegated, but then Clark had left. We had a manager who'd never managed before in Dutton. And when a new manager comes in, if he gets the opportunity, he's going to bin off the players he doesn't want and he's going to bring in the players he does want. Because if you get the opportunity, you will do that because you want a squad that's yours. Yeah. So that's kind of the reason. If Clark had stayed, I think that squad would have been fine. It would have been a mid-table squad. And I think he'd have been manager again this season. And I think you would have seen a fairly similar squad. It's all about managers. Because we offer short-term contracts, which is something we have to do financially, we have to offer 1-2 year contracts because we can't get tied down to players if they don't perform. That gives players opportunity to leave and it gives managers opportunity to get rid of players they don't want. So if there's a change in manager, you find there's usually a big change in squad. So that's kind of what it is.
I think as well, the looking back over the sort of the last 4 or 5 years, we got rid of a lot of the squad that gave us our lowest ever league finish.
Yeah.
But they were a squad that had actually kept fairly consistent between the 2 seasons. So when we didn't have a high turnover, we had our lowest league finish. And before that, Dean Keats was fairly forced into, from what he said after, and what we know, into keeping a lot of the squad that ended up getting relegated because they were on 2-year deals. So I think I agree. I want some stability at the club, but the last twice that we've kept a large proportion of players, we've been relegated, and then we've had our worst league finish. So, yeah.
I think you'll find that when it ends is when we stick by a manager. So if we do stick with Matt Taylor next season, don't expect another complete overhaul. Don't expect another mass exodus. He's going to keep the core elements of his squad and just build on it. And if he stays for a few years, then that squad's just going to slowly develop.
I also think that the entire Football League seemed to have had quite high turnovers this season. There was a lot of clubs that you wouldn't necessarily expect churned over a lot of players.
Yeah, I think that could be down to particularly the pandemic and the way they've been hit financially. Some of the players who aren't performing that are on the higher wages, maybe they've had to let them go. Maybe they've brought in a few extra loans. If you've got a squad full of loans, you're always going to have a high turnover, because if they do well, invariably the clubs, their parent clubs, want them back. Yeah. And if they don't do well, you don't want them next season, so they go back. So in our league, there is a lot of loan players, and there's a lot of experienced players on high wages that might not be performing. So financially, a lot of clubs are in the same position where if they don't need a player, he's got to go, and they got to bring in someone who's commands a lower wage and could potentially do the same job.
Yeah, I think as well with the pandemic that we've seen a lot of Championship players drop to League One and League One players drop to League Two, and the kind of the standard or caliber of player, clubs have gone, actually, do we stick with this person or do we take a risk that we've got more of a filter down, which will obviously has changed it. I'll be interested to see how many clubs stick or twist at the end of this season, bearing in mind that there's been a big turnaround just gone. Keeping quickly on the topic of transfers before we go into our final question, Lewis James asked if there's any free agents we'd like to see at the Bescot. Now, me and Harley were talking about this before, and to be quite honest, I don't really know what the free market looks like. But what I would like to ask you, Harley, and it's something I've only just thought, so I'm putting you on your toes here.
Okay, yeah.
What position is the one position that you would recruit into rather than specifically a player?
Left back. For me,
exactly what I was thinking.
For me, I don't mind Stephen Ward. I think he's all right. He's not anything special anymore. He's kind of, his legs are going a bit. But we have Matt Sadler, who's a player coach and is more of a coach these days. He's on the bench every now and then. But the average age of our left backs is 36, which is a bit ridiculous. Yeah. We really do need a left back. And Stephen Ward needs some competition, because if he gets injured, who is there? Monthe can play left back a little bit, I'm told. Who else?
I think as well it will help Mills actually focus on a position.
Yeah.
For me, I was going to say left back. I feel that actually we are creating enough. I'd probably take another winger if possible, but I think once Wilkinson's back in the team, it's going to provide competition. Shade seems he can play either wing. Kiernan can play any wing. Wilkinson can play. I'd like to see him in the right wing position. And Phillips can also kind of do a job. So I think actually I think obviously when we have the long-awaited return of Rory Holden, we will have numbers there. But for me, defensively, I don't quite know who, but I think we just need a quicker, pacier left back that can, play week in, week out, and like you said, compete with Ward.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we need. I wouldn't even mind, to be honest, just bringing in a loan. We got Max Melbourne for the second half of last season after we had George Nurse for first half. And so there are good young left backs out there, and bringing one in on loan is no bad thing because it provides a little bit of competition. It means that a club, maybe in the Championship, maybe in League One, if they've got an extra player that they're not using, who they want to get playing, we can offer them for some minutes. We offer them first team football, and it gives us another option. Because what if Ward does get injured? That's something I've been saying since we signed him. Because we
I just looked at George Nurse, and he's now transferred to Shrewsbury. He went there in the summer, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think Max Melbourne, has he gone to Stevenage? I think.
Yeah. That's a good signing for Stevenage.
It is a really good signing. I would have loved to have him back because I thought he was excellent. I thought he would have played our system quite well as well because he can get forward, but he's quick enough and he's quite physically strong. I wouldn't have minded having him back. Clearly, we couldn't get him back. He didn't want to come back, or Matt Taylor just didn't want him back.
Yeah, but I feel that he did well in a team that was awful, and like you were saying before, why would he want to come back? But when you look at it, this is a horrible statement. Stevenage are a more attractive proposition. Yeah.
The only thing that we have in our favour is, I might be completely wrong with this, but I remember Melbourne, he's actually a local lad. Pretty sure he came through the West Brom Academy. So that's the only thing that I can say that we have over Stevenage, is that we're more local for him.
Yeah, but clutching.
Does he care about that? Probably not.
Yeah. And then final question goes to Sammy. Why do you think we look tired 10 minutes into the second half? Do you think Matt Taylor is working them too hard in training? Now, I've saved this for last because I know that Harley has very strong opinions on the fitness of Walsall, particularly training. So I'll let you take it away, and then I'll put my 2 pence worth in.
Okay, yeah. So is it that he's working too hard in training? Possibly. Or is it that he's working them not hard enough in training? Or is he just not focusing on that area? Taylor wants to play this pressing football. He wants to win the ball back in high areas and transition the play quickly and smoothly from defence to attack, which in theory is great, and we can do it, but it requires a lot of running. You look at someone like George Miller, he's come from Barnsley, where Barnsley are known for pressing football. So he's incredibly fit and he runs his legs off.
Yeah.
And he's one of the only players, I would say, that doesn't look tired after 60, 70 minutes. And maybe he can share some secrets on how Barnsley do it. Maybe we bring in a specialist to improve conditioning and fitness. Because I don't understand, after 10 games, and that's just 10 league games, not even including cups and stuff, how this is still an issue. Because if we want us to play that style of football, which he clearly does, then we've got to commit to it and we've got to have the fitness levels for it. So maybe get someone in to look at how we run the training sessions. I mean, Taylor's a young coach, maybe he just needs a word in his ear to say, this isn't working, this is working, can we try this? And get that conditioning up, because it's just not good enough, in my opinion.
I have a couple of theories about it. For me, I know there was one game called off, but I think Walsall's pre-season was too short.
Yeah.
For the reason that you said, Taylor has an idea of how he wants to play. It's a high press, energetic, like you said, winning the ball high up the pitch. For that, you've got to be drilled. You look at the kind of Val ball that Ishmael plays. They are drilled in that. And they will be focusing on that a lot in training. And they had a pre-season to go with that. I think what hasn't helped is the lack of squad depth through injuries, knocks. Players who have had to go off injured in a match or with a knock, a bit of cramp, it's then not allowed him to to substitute players who are getting tired, for example. So we look back at, and I can't remember what the game is now, but the one where Osadibe had to go off, was it Bristol Rovers? He came on and went off.
Rovers, yeah.
That's one substitution that is a player that's just come on. The other two, for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was, but I think from what Taylor said post-match, effectively all three substitutions were because players took knocks. Now, I don't know whether that is a result of poor fitness or whether there is maybe two of those three did take knocks and physical blows. I think we have had an abnormally high number of players on the sideline, even if it's just for a match. I don't think that's helped at all.
No.
I mean, we all kind of said, oh, we've got loads of centre mids, and then suddenly we had one suspension and one injury, and we were like, where are our centre mids?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think it's been a mixture of things, but for me, it started in pre-season when we had a very short, reduced pre-season.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's a great point, because we did look tired in pre-season, and it was the first half of every game we were good, and then it was the second halves where we struggled, and maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe there's just the coaching staff just isn't up to it. Maybe we need to look at that and say, why is this happening? Maybe maybe we just need to get someone in to have a look and say, why is this happening? Because it shouldn't be, because it's just a bit silly, to be honest, because it's a problem that's very easily fixed. You just run the right sessions. It's not difficult. If every other club in the 92 can do it, why can't we? So I think it's quite easy to fix.
Do you feel that if we aren't running the sessions or not doing them properly, do you think it's because Taylor's trying to focus on doing not too much, but he feels there's a lot of areas that need work on, rather than there is a reason behind it?
Yeah, maybe it's that he's taken on a lot of responsibility. He was the under-18s coach at Spurs. That comes with responsibility, but it's nowhere near what it would be being a first-team manager for a professional football club in that capacity. It's very, very different. You look at some of the great managers, they said a lot of the kind of the way they had success is by delegating.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just not delegating properly at the moment. Maybe he thinks this all falls on me. I've got this idea. I need to do it. Maybe he should just kind of sit back, because we've got, is it Neil McDonald? Isn't it? The assistant coach. He's very experienced, and we've heard nothing from him.
Yeah.
Maybe just turn to him and say, what do you think? Maybe he just isn't taking in ideas from other people at the moment in the way that he should. Maybe he needs to let someone else take charge and him just step back a little bit and focus on his managerial style and getting that done. Maybe there's just a little bit too much on his plate.
Yeah. Good points all round. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. We are looking at doing it more as a separate Q&A video going forward, so all questions are welcome. Harley, thank you again for coming on. We will be seeing each other at the end of October / start of November, no doubt, for another couple of videos. As always, pleasure to have you on.
Of course, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can have a good month and a little bit more positive we can talk about, but we shall see on that front.
I think that's exactly how we ended the last video as well.
Yeah, probably.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and look after yourselves, and we'll be seeing you at the ground
So take care, guys.